Let's be honest. When someone leaves your life, especially someone you once gave your heart to, there's a part of you that wants to prove something. You want him to see what he missed. You want him to feel your absence. But here's the true thing. The most powerful thing you can do after heartbreak isn't to win him back or even make him regret it. It's to act like he never existed. Not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. Because the version of you that keeps checking his socials, rereading old messages, and wondering what went wrong, that's not the real you. The real you. She's still in there. And the moment you stop orbiting someone who couldn't value you, you'll unlock the life and love that always felt just out of reach. This isn't about revenge. It's about rebirth. Let's talk about how to become everything he can't have and never truly deserved in the first place. When a relationship ends, especially one that left you questioning your worth, it's tempting to focus on moving on just enough to look okay on the outside. You might block him, post pictures with your friends, maybe hit the gym or change your hair, all in an effort to signal, I'm fine. But here's the uncomfortable truth: moving on isn't the goal. Evolving is. When you simply move on, you risk staying the same person who tolerated behavior you shouldn't have, who settled for less than she needed, and who maybe shrank herself to make him more comfortable. Evolution, on the other hand, is transformation. It's not about becoming the kind of woman he wants. It's about becoming the kind of woman he could never keep. Think about the woman you were in that relationship. The way you gave your energy, the way you compromised, the way you may have overlooked your own needs just to keep things peaceful or avoid losing him. It's not that there was something wrong with you. Far from it. You were loving, loyal, and committed. But sometimes we give those qualities to someone who isn't emotionally mature enough to receive them. And instead of recognizing that mismatch, we internalize it. We start to believe we need to be more chill, more sexy, more understanding, less demanding. But here's the shifting: when you evolve, you stop molding yourself to someone else's comfort zone. You start building a life that actually reflects your standards, your joy, and your self-respect. You stop trying to be chosen and start choosing yourself. That's the real power move. Not pretending he never existed, but genuinely no longer needing him to exist in your world to feel whole. And this evolution doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be public. It doesn't even have to look like a revenge glow up that everyone on Instagram claps for. Sometimes evolving is sitting in your room, admitting to yourself where you lost parts of who you are. It's going to therapy, or finally starting that side hustle you kept putting off. It's choosing silence over sending one more long message explaining your heart to someone who never really listened. It's saying no without guilt, making plans without permission, and realizing that peace feels a lot better than drama ever did. He didn't just lose the woman he had. He lost the woman you are becoming. The one who longer texts when she's lonely. The one who doesn't chase crumbs. The one who doesn't need his closure because she gave it to herself. That version of you isn't bitter. She's clear on her value, clear on her standards, and clear on what she will and will not entertain in the future. And the beautiful part, you're not doing this to make him regret it. You're doing it because you finally realize you were never the problem. You were just growing in a space too small. He was the container you were trying to stretch in. Now, you get to step out of that box completely. And once you do, you'll see there was nothing wrong with you. You were simply meant for more. So no, you're not just moving on. You're evolving. And that's what makes you everything he can't have. Not because you're unavailable, but because the person you're becoming wouldn't choose him again. And that is your power. One of the most dangerous things we do after a breakup is romanticize the very relationship that left us feeling unseen, unheard, or not enough. It doesn't happen all at once. It sneaks in through little flashbacks, a song, a scent, a message you almost send but don't. And suddenly, your mind starts editing the past, like a highlight reel, the laughs you shared, the way he looked at you that one night, The conversations that felt like you were the only two people in the world. You focus on the 10% that felt magical and conveniently push aside the 90% that made you question yourself. That's not memory. That's emotional manipulation. Only this time, you're doing it to yourself. When you replay a relationship like that, you're not remembering it. You're curating it. You're picking the best scenes, the most flattering angles, and cutting out the parts that made you feel small. You leave out the nights you waited for a reply that never came. The way he shut down every time you brought up something real. The way he made you feel like your standards were too high or your needs were too much. All of that gets edited out in favor of the version where he was almost what you needed, almost ready, almost enough. But here's the hard truth. Almost is never enough. Not for someone who's ready for real. You're not missing him. You're missing the idea of him. The potential you saw, the future you hoped for, the way it could have been if only he had shown up differently. But loving someone for who they could be is a fast way to betray who you are. You don't fall in love with potential. You fall into disappointment when you keep waiting for someone to become what they promised, but never actually delivered. Every time you replay that highlight reel, you keep yourself stuck. You start questioning your decision to walk away. You start doubting whether it was as bad as it really was. And maybe you even consider reaching out, thinking, what if he's changed? But if someone couldn't meet you where you were when they had you, what makes you think they'll rise to meet you now that you're gone? This is where emotional discipline comes in. You have to train your mind to see the whole picture, not just the parts your heart misses. It's not about hating him. It's about being honest with yourself. Was he consistent? Did he truly listen? Did he make you feel safe, supported, chosen? Or were you constantly trying to prove your worth, walking on eggshells, or giving him yet another chance because you believed the story more than the reality? The relationship didn't end just because of timing, or bad luck, or a simple misunderstanding. It ended because one or both people stopped showing up in the way love requires. And if you're the one who stayed too long, gave too much, or accepted too little, then the work now isn't about convincing yourself it was great. It's about learning from what wasn't. You don't owe your past anything but the truth. And the truth is, no amount of nostalgia will change what actually happened. No beautiful memory erases the pain of constantly feeling like you were asking for scraps. So when your mind starts to play the greatest hits of your old relationship, pause. Ask yourself, what am I really missing? The answer usually has less to do with him, and more to do with the parts of yourself you gave away. When you finally stop replaying the highlight reel, you create space for real healing. You stop idolizing someone who couldn't love you the way you deserve. And in doing so, you open the door to something, and someone, far better, reality grounded in respect, consistency, and emotional safety. The kind of love that doesn't need a highlight reel to feel right. Your mind is a crowded place, and the most valuable real estate you own is your attention. After a breakup, it's easy to give that prime mental space to someone who no longer deserves it. Someone who left, who hurt you, or who simply wasn't the right fit. The problem is, when you keep renting out your thoughts to him, even without realizing it, you're giving away your power. Every minute you spend wondering what he's doing, analyzing his last message, or imagining how things could have been better, you're draining your energy and your emotional bandwidth. And that energy is precious. It's the fuel that builds your future, not replays your past. Reclaiming your mental space isn't about erasing memories or pretending it didn't happen. It's about deciding who gets to live rent-free in your head. And the simple truth is, he doesn't deserve that kind of residency. Holding on to thoughts of him is like carrying around a heavy backpack filled with rocks that slow you down. The more you think about him, the heavier the load, and the harder it is to move forward. So the first step to healing is to consciously redirect your attention toward what matters most. Yourself. Think of your attention as currency. You only have so much to spend each day. If you spend it obsessing over what he might be doing, who he's with, or why he didn't text back, you're bankrupting yourself emotionally. Instead, invest that currency where it yields real returns: your passions, your dreams, your friendships, and most importantly, your self-growth. When you pour your energy into yourself, you're not just healing, you're creating a life so fulfilling that there's no room left for distractions or doubts. It's also about boundaries, but not just with him. Boundaries with yourself. Set limits on how often you allow your mind to drift toward him. When you catch yourself scrolling his social media or replaying old conversations, gently but firmly pull yourself back. Replace that habit with something nourishing: a walk, a call to a friend, journaling, or diving into a project that excites you. Over time, this rewiring helps your brain associate your attention with positive growth rather than painful memories. This process is more than just a mental shift, it's emotional self-respect in action. By reclaiming your space, you're telling yourself that your thoughts, your feelings, and your energy matter. You're prioritizing your well-being over the urge to obsess. And this sets a powerful precedent for future relationships. If you don't give your power away to someone who doesn't value you, you're far less likely to tolerate that behavior again. Another key point is that the less you revolve around him mentally, the more you naturally cultivate your own identity outside the relationship. Breakups can sometimes leave you feeling like you lost not just a partner, but a part of yourself. Reclaiming your mental space helps you find those missing pieces again. You begin to remember who you are independent of him, your interests, your quirks, your values. This clarity makes you stronger, more confident, and ultimately more magnetic, because you're not defined by someone else's absence or presence. Reclaiming your attention doesn't mean you never think about him. It means you choose when and how. If you're working through feelings, that's healthy, but it's the difference between intentional processing and compulsive obsession. Intentional processing helps you understand, learn, and grow. Obsession keeps you stuck, anxious, and exhausted. Ultimately, this mental reclamation is the foundation for building a life where your happiness doesn't depend on his validation or presence. When you fully reclaim your space, you shift the energy from missing someone to creating your own joy. You become the woman who moves with purpose, clarity, and freedom, someone who doesn't just survive heartbreak, but thrives beyond it. And here's the best part: the more you protect and nurture your mental space, the less he controls your emotional world. You become the architect of your own peace, the curator of your own happiness, and the owner of a life that's too rich and full for someone who couldn't value you to even get a foot in the door. Detachment is one of the most misunderstood, and yet most powerful, tools when it comes to reclaiming your emotional strength after a breakup. So many people confuse detachment with coldness or indifference. But really, it's about creating healthy boundaries and shifting your focus inward. When you stop needing someone to validate your worth or confirm your value, you move into a space of magnetic confidence that's far more attractive than any desperate pursuit. Desire isn't created through chasing or needing, it's created through absence and mystery. When you're constantly available, mentally, emotionally, physically, you become predictable and, unfortunately, less desirable. The energy you put out when you need someone to want you can come off as needy, anxious, or even desperate, which isn't attractive to anyone. On the other hand, when you detach, you're not shutting down your emotions. You're managing them with maturity. You're saying, "I'm okay on my own. I don't need you to complete me." That's incredibly powerful because it shifts the dynamic entirely. When you detach, you give yourself permission to stop obsessing over why he didn't call or text. You stop overanalyzing every word or action. You stop making yourself available on his schedule. Detachment means you recognize your value independently of his interest or attention. You become someone who isn't emotionally dependent on another's approval, and that independence creates space for your confidence to grow. This isn't about pretending you don't care. It's about showing yourself you care enough to protect your peace. When you detach, you prioritize your emotional health over the urge to seek reassurance from him. Instead of wondering what he's thinking, you focus on what you want. You become the woman who chooses her own happiness, not the one who waits around hoping someone else will give it to her. And that shift is palpable. People can feel when you're grounded and secure in yourself. It's magnetic. There's a difference between coldness and detachment. Coldness is a defense mechanism. It's armor that keeps you closed off from connection and vulnerability. Detachment is clarity. It's a conscious choice to not get caught up in someone else's emotional roller coaster. It means you're able to love yourself enough to step back from the drama and chaos and say, I'm not going to lose myself trying to hold on to someone who doesn't want to hold on to me. When you operate from detachment, you're not trying to manipulate or punish. You're simply refusing to be emotionally available on demand. That boundary forces the other person to either step up or step out. And here's the kicker: the more you stop needing him, the more desire naturally grows in the space you create. Because desire thrives on challenge, mystery, and independence, not on dependence or neediness. In essence, detachment shifts the power dynamic. When you're emotionally available but not emotionally dependent, you become someone who is respected, admired, and yes, desired. You stop chasing validation and start giving yourself the validation you deserve. That's when you become the prize, not the pursuer. Detachment is also about reclaiming your identity. After a breakup, it's easy to lose sight of who you are outside of the relationship. But when you detach, you're actively reconnecting with yourself, your passions, your goals, your boundaries. You're investing your energy in things that light you up, rather than obsessing over someone who dimmed your light. This inner work builds resilience and confidence, which in turn makes you far more attractive, not just to others, but to yourself. Ultimately, detachment is about emotional freedom. It's about breaking the chains of needing someone else to feel whole. It's about stepping into your power, knowing you're enough exactly as you are. When you act from this place, the weight of your absence, you're not just becoming someone he can't have. You're becoming someone who can't be held back. And that's the kind of woman who attracts not just love, but the right kind of love. There's a common misconception that in order to win someone back or attract the right person, you need to change yourself. To be more likable, more accommodating, or even less, too much. But the truth is, love isn't about changing who you are to fit someone else's mold. It's about becoming the fullest, most authentic version of yourself. Raising your standards isn't about putting up walls or being unreachable. It's about knowing your worth and refusing to settle for anything less than what aligns with your true value. When you lower your standards, it's usually because you're trying to avoid loneliness, uncertainty, or the discomfort of being alone with yourself. You might convince yourself that a relationship with someone who doesn't truly respect or cherish you is better than no relationship at all. But settling in this way comes at a steep cost. You sacrifice yourself, respect, and diminish your potential for real happiness. It's like trying to live in a house that's too small for you. You might get by, but you're never truly comfortable, and you're constantly bumping against the walls. Instead of focusing on strategies to be more likable or appealing, the real work is upgrading your standards. What do you truly deserve? How do you want to be treated? What kind of love do you want to experience? When you clarify these things for yourself, you're no longer willing to settle for less. You begin to see red flags more clearly, recognize when someone isn't matching your energy, and step away from situations that don't nourish you. This shift doesn't mean you become picky or rigid. It means you become selective in a way that honors your emotional health. You stop tolerating inconsistent behavior, disrespect, or emotional unavailability. You start choosing relationships that support your growth, your happiness, and your sense of self. And the best part, when you're operating from this place of clarity, you don't have to try to be more likable because you're already radiating confidence in who you are. Authenticity becomes your greatest asset. When you stop performing for someone else's approval and start living in alignment with your values, your energy changes. People can sense it. You stop giving mixed signals or bending over backwards to fit someone else's idea of perfect. Instead, you show up fully as you. Flaws, passions, quirks, and all. That kind of realness is magnetic, and it attracts the kind of people who are ready to love you exactly as you are. It's also important to understand that raising your standards includes emotional boundaries. You might have been someone who accepted poor treatment because you didn't want to lose the connection. But when you upgrade your standards, you start setting clear limits. You communicate what is and isn't acceptable, and you're prepared to walk away when those boundaries are crossed. This isn't about being harsh or unforgiving. It's about self-respect and protecting your heart. When you stop adjusting your strategy to try and win someone over and instead focus on upgrading your standards, you create a powerful internal shift. The energy you put out changes from chasing and hoping to grounded confidence and self-assuredness. And here's a truth that's easy to overlook. The right person doesn't make you question your worth or your values. They affirm and celebrate them. So rather than trying to become someone you think he wants, become the woman who knows exactly what she deserves and refuses to settle for less. When you do that, you're not just raising your standards, you're raising your vibration. You're signaling to the universe and to everyone around you that you won't accept anything but the best, because you know you are the best. This mindset doesn't just change your dating life, it changes your entire life. When you hold yourself to higher standards, you create more meaningful connections, pursue your goals with greater clarity, and live a life that feels expansive and fulfilling. It's about honoring yourself enough to demand the love and respect you deserve. And when you do, everything else falls into place naturally. Sometimes, the most powerful message you can send after a breakup isn't with words, but with silence. When a relationship ends, especially if it ended badly or left you feeling confused and hurt, there's a natural urge to seek closure. Whether that means a conversation, an explanation, or some kind of final moment that makes sense of the chaos. But the truth is, closure is something you give yourself, not something you get from someone else. And sometimes, the most profound closure comes from stepping back completely and letting your absence speak louder than any explanation ever could. Disappearing from his life isn't about being petty or immature. It's an act of strength and self-preservation. When you keep reaching out, sending messages, or engaging in conversations that don't serve your healing, you're essentially giving him power over your emotional world. Every time you respond to him, you keep the door open to old patterns, old wounds, and the possibility of more pain. But when you choose silence, you're reclaiming that power. You're telling yourself and him that you're no longer available for the version of love or connection that left you broken or uncertain. Silence creates space for healing. It allows your heart to reset and your mind to find clarity without the noise of mixed signals or false hopes. It's in the quiet that you can start to understand your own feelings, work through your pain, and envision a future that isn't defined by the past. Without the constant back and forth, you're free to process what happened on your own terms, without pressure or interference. Moreover, silence sends a message that words often can't. It says, I'm choosing myself over this drama. I'm choosing peace over chaos. I'm choosing growth over stagnation. When you remove yourself from a situation where you're not truly valued, you create a powerful statement through your actions. You become the person who walks away with dignity, not desperation. And that kind of quit strength can be far more impactful than any argument or explanation ever could. There's also an important lesson in learning to go of the need for someone else's validation. We often crave closure because we want to understand why things ended or to feel reassured that it wasn't our fault. But seeking that from the person who hurt us can trap us in a cycle of dependency and confusion. Real closure comes from within. When you accept the reality, forgive yourself for what happened, and decide to move forward regardless of unanswered questions. Choosing silence doesn't mean you're shutting down your emotions. It means you're honoring your feelings privately, without involving someone who may not be capable of giving you what you need. It's a form of self-respect that prioritizes your well-being over the urge to explain, defend, or negotiate your worth to someone who's already walked away. In many ways, silence is a boundary that protects your heart from further harm. It allows you to focus your energy on rebuilding yourself, rediscovering your passions, and reconnecting with your own value. When you stop explaining yourself to someone who never understood you, you free up time and emotional space for people who do. And that shift is transformational. Ultimately, silence after a breakup is about reclaiming your narrative. You stop letting him define your story or your worth. You become the author of your own healing journey, choosing which chapters to write next. The absence of communication isn't a void. It's a powerful pause filled with potential for growth, self-love, and new beginnings. By acting through silence, you show that you don't need closure from someone who couldn't grow with you. You show that you're moving on not because you have to, but because you deserve better. And in that quiet strength, you become everything he can't have. The woman who walked away whole, confident, and ready for a love that truly honors her. To wrap this all up, remember that true power after heartbreak doesn't come from chasing someone who left or trying to fit into their world. It comes from fully stepping into your own. Acting like he never existed isn't about erasing the past, but about reclaiming your present and future on your own terms. When you stop giving him space in your mind, raise your standards, set clear boundaries, and embrace your worth, you become a force that can't be ignored by him or by anyone else. You become everything he can't have because you're no longer waiting for his permission to be whole and happy. This is your moment to rise, to rewrite your story, and to become the woman who attracts the love and life she truly deserves. So own it, live it, and watch how your world transforms when you finally choose yourself first